Go for it.
I call this meeting to order. It's the regular session of the mayor and council of the city of Bisbee, county of Cochise, and state of Arizona. It is being held on August 17th at 7 p.m.
Councilmember Lewis Pollock.
Here.
Councilmember Joni Giacomino.
Here.
Councilmember Frank Davis.
Here.
Mayor Ken Budge is excused. Councilmember Leslie Johns is excused. Councilmember Mel Sweet.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Anna Klein.
Here.
City staff, Stephen Pockins, City Manager, Ashley Coronado, City Clerk, Carrie Bagley, Finance Director, Joelle Landers, Personnel Director, Jesus Haro, Public Works Director, Alberti Chavez, Police Chief, Jim Richardson, Acting Fire Chief, Joe Estes, City Attorney.
And for the invocation, can we just take a moment of silence and just think about the many blessings in our lives and how lucky we are to live in this. And for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, under proclamations and announcements, Ms. Landers will have a longevity recognition, but first I would like to send condolences on behalf of my family and the city of Bisbee to the family of Chief Eddie Lopez. Chief passed away on August 1st in Tucson, and he was from October 31st, 1966 to July 31st, 1987. Eddie was an officer, sergeant, and chief of the Bisbee Police Department. And anyone who knew Eddie was touched by his kindness, humor, mild temperament. He was truly a peacemaker and was always a source of positivity. And we'd like to thank Chief Lopez for his service. And Joelle can take over from here.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This evening, I have two employees.
Just a second, Joelle.
Oh,
I cannot hear you. Just when you get other things running, something else stops. Just 1 minute. Okay, go ahead and give it a try.
thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council. This evening, I have two City of Bisbee employees who have reached longevity milestones, and we would like to recognize them this evening. Neither are able to be attending via Zoom or there in person, but they've been notified and they will be able to look on Facebook after this evening. I have Javier Rodriguez. He is in the Public Works Streets Department as an equipment operator, and he had 5 years of longevity on August 8th, 2021. And we have his fun little acknowledgement green screen. There we go. No, anyways, we used a street sign and put his name and the 5 years on it. And so now I'd ask Mr. Haro if you would please say a few words.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. It's an honor to be able to speak a few words about Mr. Rodriguez. He is our second longest tenured person in our streets department. He's an extremely valuable person. And when I mean that, he's extremely versatile. Not only does he work in our streets department, he also most likely leads our facilities group. If you did not know, our streets department is largely responsible for maintaining our buildings as well as the streets. And he has led a few projects. He's led the project to re-roof this building here that we used to occupy. He's done a lot of projects as well as the facility that we currently in. He's led a lot of those projects in changing and modifying the building that we are in so that it makes it useful for us. In addition, he's also been a versatile and extremely valuable person in the Tombstone Canyon project. When we spent nearly $1 million on that road, and he was there with all of our street department. Again, he's extremely versatile, extremely valuable person within our streets department. I'm honored and proud that he is within our public works department.
Thank you, Mr. Haro. And next we have Doug Graham.
It's not working through that. One more time. Okay, go ahead.
Next we have, with 15 years of longevity, Doug Graham, the Copper Queen Mine Tour Manager. He had 15 years as of August 7th, 2021. And we have his wonderful, it's not gonna work. Anyways, wonderful little acknowledgements for those employees. And Mr. Potkin, if you would mind, please saying a few words.
Thank you, Joelle. Good evening, everyone. It's with a lot of pleasure that I get a chance to say a few words about Doug Graham. Doug is one of the first folks that I hired 15 years ago in my second year with the city. And we charged him with taking over an operation that did mine tours and little else. When he took over the mine tour, the gift shop consisted of one coffee mug, one ball cap, and one sweatshirt. And look at it today. He has really brought a lot of pride and exuberance into his and his employees' work at the mine tour, which is translated into greater tourism in the downtown area and in Bisbee as a whole. And no small feat when you get started where Doug got started. So congratulations, Doug. Don't know if you're watching tonight, but thank you very much. And we'll provide you with your token of appreciation tomorrow when you come into the office.
Thank you, Mr. Potkin.
And we're lucky to have both Javier and Doug. I mean, they're big assets to the city. So congratulations on your longevity. And next we have call to the public.
No one signed up.
No? Unusual. Okay, so then we move on to general business. And number one, we've got accounts payable. I'd like to move that we pay accounts payable in the amount of $217,753.92, subject to availability of funds.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second on accounts payable. Do we have any questions?
Yeah. Okay.
I'd just like to know, it's not my first time here, thank you guys. On account payables, I mean, I wasn't here, maybe you guys had talked about it last week, and how do we go about it? Is it basically we measure it against the budget? I'd just like to know how to go, I mean, I would like to, I went through the budget, I went through some of the account tables, some of the payment is basically purchases that are made by the various departments. So I would like to ask maybe the city manager can enlighten us overall. How do we measure that? Is this basically usually amount budgeted? And do we make sure that we are going against budget when we spend this money?
Yeah, the answer is yes, and it kind of takes a little bit different path. This tells you the expenditures for the last 2 weeks. Those then are put into the financial statements, which come out every month. And the financial statements can be measured directly against what we budgeted back in June. So this does, this you approve because staff certifies that funds are available to make expenditures, but you see the impact of those expenditures when you get your monthly financial statement.
Okay, so basically, the question I have, because it says subject to the approval availability of funds, I'm assuming that these funds have been budgeted for. So are they available or not available?
Being budgeted and being available are two different things. And so when somebody wants to spend some money, usually it's a department head. They fill out paperwork that they have to put what they're spending the money on, how much they're spending the money, or excuse me, how much money they're spending, and then they have to assign it to an accounting code that is part of the financial statement. And so that goes into finance. Finance confirms that it's the correct account number, that the funds are available before the money is spent. And then they log it on the accounts payable, which you approve on an every 2-week basis. So there's several steps along the way. And then to the point where you get this document, and then this document goes into preparing the financial statement, which is published every month. You review that when you get it, usually at the end of the first week or so of the following month.
Yeah. I don't, this is not the issue. I mean, the format and the way how it goes about. It just for me, when, because I was going through the budgets and I was going through the account payables which was given to me. I just wanted to know how to go about it. And do we do the budget on a monthly basis so we know that's how much we have allocated? Because if we wait until the end of the year and then this is how we end up in deficit and we don't know what's going on. My question is, and that's the wording maybe here, but threw me off, subject to availability. I'm assuming when we do a budget, we'll basically say this fund, we're expecting this fund, and we're going to spend it on this, not just purchases. And logging it is not an issue. That's a bookkeeping issue. We log numbers and we'll assign them to accounts. I just want to make sure before this, where's the money supposed to come from, and we have the money to spend, or whatever it may be.
And the answer is yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, all right. That's all I have. Thank you.
I have a couple of questions. The first one is on page 2, and it's for a water service deposit for $1,000. What is that?
If you don't mind, Mr. Harrell, I would like to take that one.
Please do.
For some reason, the policy of Arizona Water has changed. That refers to water meter that's right out in front of this building. And when we reopened the council chamber 2 weeks ago, of course, we had to turn on the water. And so we had Arizona Water come over and basically turn the valve. But we were advised at that time that in order to get the voucher, you have to pay that deposit. So I inquired with the president of Arizona Water Company, and he has not answered my question yet. He sent me a response by email about a week ago saying that there was something to do with tariffs that he was going to have to check into. Now, if you'll recall, when we first moved in over here, there was a 4-inch valve, 4-inch meter. And the base charge was $500 a month. And then we asked them to remove it and put a 2-inch meter in, because even though we do fine with a 5/8 meter, but it's a commercial account, so they won't put anything smaller than 2-inch meter. So we paid the 2-inch meter costs and all that time, and then when you calculate how much that deposit is, it's more than we paid on the average for the months that we had a 2-inch meter in this building. So basically, and you know, Fred is an old friend of mine, and we've gone round and round about some of these things. You'll recall some of the litigation. But they're blaming it on some kind of tariff, and he's supposed to get back to me and explain it after he's talked to his lawyer. So I will let you know when I get an answer. I did do some basic elementary mathematics to prove to him that we more than been generous paying the water bill for the time we spent.
Okay, thank you for that. And then the second one I have is on page 7. And it's for demolition and debris removal for $4,999. Where was that? Removal.
That was for the house, I believe, on Cochise Road, right?
31 Cochise Road.
Yes, Cochise Road, demolition of that building.
That's all done.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Follow up, actually, the question Anne asked was good when she asked about that amount. So the money that you spent for this water adjustment, water bill, was that budgeted for? Or did you have it in the budget?
It was in the department budget, and it did go over the line item.
So it did.
Yes.
So my question will be for next time, so I can learn, so I know how to proceed in the future. So how do we go about this when we go over budget? Do we try to make up for it somewhere else, or do we just say, well, just gonna be a deficit?
That is one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is by making a budget adjustment. And towards the end of the fiscal year, if a department budget would happen to go over in expenditures on expenditures that you had approved, then the accounting function would call for an accounting adjustment which would come to you for approval. So at the end of the year, your budget basically balances. Okay. And Mel, if you would like, I'd be happy to spend some time with you. We can put this next to the financial.
No, that's
statements.
fine. Just
And I can show you back and forth how one.
no, I basically know, but what you're saying then, just to set this straight. So we're gonna force budgeting then. I believe if we had budgeted for a certain amount, which was presented, has been presented, because that's the question I asked. I'll probably ask the next week for us to set the meeting. Because that's forced budgeting. If we spend something and then if we spend something, then we go say, well, we will adjust the budget to reflect that adjustment. That's basically we force budgeting rather than living within our budget. So I'm sorry. So my recommendation would be for the departments that if we have a budget and we go over a budget, we should try to cut it somewhere else rather than just say, well, we'll adjust the budget to reflect on expenses that we had not foreseen.
Okay, can we have that conversation in more depth?
Sure,
Maybe tomorrow or the next day?
Yes.
Because quite frankly, you may not go over budget too, okay? I mean, and sometimes expenditures like this are beyond our control. We didn't have the choice. when we got that $10,000 deposit. We were either in this building or we weren't. And the ransom from Arizona Water was $10,000. So, you know, what are you gonna do? I mean, what choice do you make?
What choice then? I'm sorry. The way I see it, Steve, you know, we're not just bookkeeping. We're not just, you know, in and out. We basically, when we manage an entity, we try to live within what we budget. So we have to manage rather than just saying, where we go, well, since we didn't have that money. So I think maybe the goal will be is to make sure that we are knowing what we need to do. And if we go over, spend over what is budgeted, then my recommendation will be is to. So my recommendation would be for next time, because this is our budget year just started in July. I wasn't here for the budget, so probably I don't have all the information. But as someone who does budgets, who manage entities, I have to live within that. All of us, as when we manage our household, we have to live with. We know how much we're going to make, and if we have to fix a roof, we make sure we save enough for it. We don't just go back and ask our boss, "Oh, give us extra money." My recommendation would be is either we live within the budget or we make it up somewhere else. Whether we have to cut expense somewhere else, we have to find some kind of revenue. I mean, not add fees. I won't go for that. We'll add more taxes. But just because it's just started the budget. So I'm recommending that we, the department heads and all of us, we have been entrusted by the people of Bisbee to manage their resources properly, not just to go back to them and say, for example, let me give you an example. That's what this is about. I was looking at the budget, and maybe Steve, I'm not talking about you, I'm just talking about overall. We said, well, we have to raise the sewer fee because we needed to buy trucks. Usually, as an entity, as we manage an entity, we need to make sure to have budgeted for this. We will have depreciated those trucks, and we have saved money rather than just say, oh, we needed the trucks, therefore, let's just add more fees. That's not, in my book, that's not management, that's just bookkeeping.
Mel, can I interrupt you, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay, first of all, we're off topic.
Yes.
Okay, Madam Chairman.
Yes, yes.
Um,
Joe's not here
Yeah.
to keep it.
Secondly, you're talking about budget management, and you're talking to a guy who's managed, I'm currently managing my 10th budget for the city of Bisbee,
Sure.
plus 5 budgets someplace else in Arizona.
Sure.
So I am all too aware of what you're talking about.
Good.
And I have never managed a budget in Bisbee that's gone under. Okay, now
Going under? What do you mean going under?
we have always,
Below the budget or above the budget?
no, we have always had money at the end of the year. We have never
We should.
failed.
Yes.
Okay, so now let's stay on topic, because the topic is to approve the accounts payable. A discussion on budget management is off topic, and we'll have to have that some other time.
I have no problem with this, but basically, I think sometimes the only issue I have with this, and we just need to make sure, I'll stop at the end of this, is I believe that we should do this on a monthly basis. Anyway, thank you.
Okay, so. Okay,
Might be
so
a
what
battery
we have before us is, a motion and a second for accounts payable in the amount of $217,753.92.
Correct.
Coronado.
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacominno,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Sweet,
Nay.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein,
Aye. Motion passes 4-1.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein.
Yes. Mr. Estes.
So, sorry, I just wanted to step in and kindly remind council that under the open meeting laws, one of the reasons why we can't go off topic is because of the requirement to have an agendized meeting. And so we can talk in specifics as to those items that are on the agenda, but if it gets off into a more general discussion as to an overall policy or consideration, then we just need to say, okay, I want to have additional discussion on this, and then we can ask the council to request that it be put on a future agenda for additional discussion as to those more general topics. But just as a reminder, because of the open meeting law requirements for council meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Estes, and we'll just, Mel has this is all new to him, so he.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I totally understand. It's new, and there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of different requirements and things that are, definitely not like a normal business is being run. And we can even put together some trainings and some other things, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Estes. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 2. We have approval of the consent agenda. And that's item 8, approval. Approval of the minutes of special session. Thank you, Ms. Palmer. Okay, so we have item A, approval of the minutes of the special session of the mayor and council held on July 27, 2021. Item B, approval of the minutes of the special session of the mayor and council held on August 3rd, 2021. C, approval of the minutes of the regular session of the mayor and council held on August 3rd, 2021. D, approval of the resignation of Audrey Lucci Giacominno from the Evergreen Cemetery Committee. E, approval of the park facility and right-of-way use permit for the Bisbee Bloomers 19th annual garden tour at Grassy Park on Saturday, September 4th, 2021, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Item F, approval of a special event liquor license application submitted by Bisbee Vogue Inc. for the Craft Beer Festival to be held at St. Patrick's Catholic Church, located at 100 Quality Hill, on Saturday, October 16th, 2021, from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. G, approval of a special event liquor license application submitted by Friends of the Bisbee Animal Shelter to hold an event at the Shady Dell located at number 1 Douglas Road on Sunday, September 5th, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. H, approval of a special event liquor license application submitted by Friends of the Bisbee Animal Shelter to hold an event at the Shady Dell located at 1 Douglas Road on Sunday, September 26th, 2021, from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. I, approval of a liquor license application for Cafe Cornucopia located at 14 Main Street.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Davis and a second by Mr. Pollock to approve consent agenda items A through I. Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacominno,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Sweet,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein.
Aye. Motion passes. Now we are on to old business. We have discussion and possible approval of ordinance O-21-12, amending Article 6, General Provisions, Section 6.4, walls and fences by inserting screens for the purpose of providing an opportunity for recreational courts as accessory uses in public use and or commercial historic districts to protect the integrity of neighboring public use and or commercial areas and to mitigate any deleterious, I got that right or not, impacts on proximate properties. Mr. Ward. Is he
Don't think
joining?
I don't think he is here. Let's see.
Unless Mr. Estes knows something about it, so let's just move on.
Okay, it is the second reading of this ordinance. Mr. Ward presented on it the last time.
Do we have a motion?
I would move to, have it in front of me, but, to approve this motion. Second.
We have a motion by Frank and a second by Lou to approve ordinance O-21-12. Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacominno,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Sweet,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to agenda item 4, discussion and possible approval of ordinance O-21-14, accepting the transfer of real property from Southeast Arizona Renovations LLC located at 300 Campbell Street. Mr. Falcon.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This is the second reading of the ordinance. 2 weeks ago, we had discussion with regard to accepting the transfer of this property from Southeast Arizona Renovations LLC to the city. This is, of course, part of the workforce housing program. And by the time this ordinance takes effect, the house will be complete. And we should be able to commence with an auction for new owner.
Thank you, Mr. Falcon. Do we have a motion?
I move that we approve ordinance O-21-14, accepting the transfer of real property from Southeast Arizona Renovations LLC located at 300 Campbell Street, Bisbee.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Thank you. It was moved by Lou and seconded by Frank to approve ordinance 0-21-14. Ms. Coronado?
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacominno,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Sweet,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein.
Okay, motion passes 5-1.
Five to one.
Oh.
4-1.
Yeah,
I know.
that's what happened.
When I said man, you said 4-1. I said, what happened?
Yeah, 4-1. Everybody needs to be here. I
Yeah.
can't remember.
That's council math.
It's council math, he said.
That's what I mean. Okay, so agenda item 5 through 13, or 13 will be all new business. And number 5 is discussion and possible approval of a request for American Rescue Plan emergency assistance funds for Central School project in the amount of $3,000. Mr. Pocket.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and good evening again. This is a request from Central School Project. As you can see from the application that they submitted, they're seeking to replace some revenue that they lost during the depths of the pandemic in terms of their ability to rent the building and hold events there. So their request is for $3,000 to make up the difference.
Is there any discussion on this?
Yeah,
Yes.
I just want to know how did we go about, I mean, this will apply to all of them. I saw the requests that were sent by the different entities here. What was first of all, was this announced to all the nonprofit, or how did these entities knew about this money? And what kind of measurement we have to ensure that this money given or spent, are they at the end of the, once they spend the money, they have to bring to us some kind of verification that this money was spent where it was requested? I mean, is there any metrics to ensure that this money spent in where it's supposed to have gone?
Okay, several weeks ago, we had a long discussion because this is money that is coming to us from the American Rescue Plan Act. To date, we have received approximately $872,000, and we'll get another installment of that size next July. So we started by asking people and asking council and asking department heads to come up with suggestions that we could put on the list. The list, which I believe you received a copy of in modified form, either at or near your agenda packet, was a list that was discussed by the city council. Once that discussion was held, the agreement was that we would bring each and every single item on this list back to you, Mayor and Council, for your approval. With specific regard to emergency assistance to nonprofits, it was requested by council that we put together an application form that was very simple in nature. That we did. And then we went about the task of putting it out there on the newspapers and on social media to ask people if they were in need of assistance to please fill out this form that was available on the city website and return it to either the city manager or the city clerk. The list you have before you tonight is a list of the requests that we received by the deadline for this agenda. There are actually a couple of more that came in after the agenda deadline that we couldn't put in there for tonight's discussion. So beyond that, that was the discussion with the council and the city manager in terms of how we were to go about this. One additional thing, the original figure on this list was $50,000 at Mr. Pollock's request. We upped that amount to $75,000. So what's on your list of things to consider tonight amounts to about $57,000. So you have the option to accept, reject, or modify the request on each and every one of those requests that are before you tonight. You are in total control of the situation. This is the way it was set up by council. This is the way we're doing it. If you wish to impose additional metrics or additional restrictions or additional rules or regulations, that is a discussion for another time.
I just wanted to know what was, I mean, and you answer this was decided by the council. I'm sure they had your reason and they had your justification. So, and I don't have the total, I mean, why, I mean, if someone asks, well, I need it for this, and what kind of justification they had, what kind of paperwork they brought in, because a lot of the entities did receive some kind of funding from the CARE Act. So I just want to make sure the money should be spent, should be helping, but let's make sure it goes where it's supposed to. We'll go into other, I just wanted to know. So,
and that's why it's before you tonight. You're in total control of the situation.
So we can't ask that kind of question then when we have discussion as to what other background they have, because that was one of my questions on some of these.
Well, you can,
Okay.
because you're in charge.
Oh, okay.
And so if that would, if council's recommendation would be to get more information,
Oh, okay.
then we would
I get it.
seek that information and put it on a subsequent agenda.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. I understand what you just said about the way you set this up. I also have a lot of questions about this. In my mind, the right way for us to do this, let me back up a little bit. I have a lot of calls from people who say, is there a deadline for when we can submit a request for emergency funding? And I didn't know the answer to that question. And I do. It appears that we're just taking each request as it comes in and blanket approval. That's what's going to happen. That's what we're going to do. I can't look at this and say, well, you want $6,000. I can only approve $3,000 because I have no data, no basis from which to make that determination. So really, we don't have control of the situation. I would prefer to see all of the requests come in from all of the nonprofits, and then each one of them be analyzed based on data and facts, and then prioritized. Say, this is a true emergency. This is maybe a secondary emergency, tertiary emergency, but we don't have that information to make that kind of determination as a body. So that's my biggest concern about this group. $57,000 out of $75,000 is gone after tonight without much analysis on our part, and that troubles me. I would like to see the whole package presented and prioritized so that we could have a rational discussion about how to allocate this money. That's my concern.
That would be fine, then we would also have to place a deadline on requests.
Yeah, that's fine.
In other words, by the end of the month or something like that, and then we accept no more. So that would, and I have no problem, Mr. Pollack, with doing that. You would have to table all of these requests tonight, and again, we have no problem with that. We were following the what do you call that?
Protocol.
We were
Following
doing
something.
We were working with what we were given.
The direction we had.
Direction, that was the word.
If I may add to what Mr. Paul got.
So I guess I have a question, because there's some of them in here that seem to be a dire emergency, I guess, not for better. Can I actually use my examples that I'm looking at? Like, I mean, for instance, the women's club, correct me if I'm wrong, mining and historical. I mean, these are safety issues that, I mean, they're pretty clear cut when they put it in there, what they're asking for. You know, asking for an elevator that needs repaired. The women's club is asking for the help with the building because they've got some major structural issues. So would we have to table all of them, or some of them, do some of them have enough information? I mean, can we determine if some of them have enough information? Because I don't know what their deadline is either. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and it's totally your prerogative.
I agree with Joni. Some of these, like the science lab, they have a very long description. So some of these need more fleshing out. I think some of them we could actually vote on tonight.
If I may add, I think the way to go, because what's happening now, first of all, like I said, I don't know how we made the announcement. Did we make it official? Just went for media. A lot of entities that, like for example, didn't know about it. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they will not. My recommendation is to wait, because you have to apply the same rule for everyone. And I just don't believe a couple of weeks is gonna make a difference. Let's just do this and do it correctly. Like Mr. Pollack said, bring all the applications. We sit down, we do a session, we go through the application, and we say yes, and we have a certain amount, and maybe you cannot give that person that needs 5,000. The way this was done, I believe somebody said I needed 7,000, I need 16,000. But to be honest with you, you may make that entity happy, but there's several other entities that may be in need of this. So my recommendation is to wait. If we have to wait a couple of weeks, put out an announcement. Let's see who else. Because I mean, for example, and I don't know, we have a great institution here, the Boys and Girls Club. didn't see them here. Maybe they are funded sufficiently, but we do so much for this time. So my recommendation is to wait. We don't have to, I think these places have lived without these for months. They can wait a couple of weeks, then we do it and do it back. We really have to gain the trust of the people of Bisbee that we don't think responsibly. Not just, just say, no, somebody asked for this and we believe it is, and we do it. So I think my recommendation to wait a couple of weeks and study it more.
Okay, right now, item number 5, which is request from the Central School Project, is the agenda item we're discussing.
Okay, so then I have a question for Mr. Estes. Because I think we've all expressed, how we feel about prioritizing. Is it possible to table items 5 through 13 and then give staff direction as far as setting a deadline and then us have a work session to prioritize these and then present it at the next meeting? I mean, I don't think 2 weeks will hurt any of these, maybe other than the defibrillator for the fire department, but I mean, they get through, so, I think 2 weeks is reasonable.
That's not part of
That's
the.
not part of this.
Can I show a question too? Yes. And along that same line, can we also include the specific emergency? Like some of them are specific, is repair for this or blah, 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 and the exact item is tough. How is this an emergency rather than something, I don't know. I just, some of them, I just wonder about the emergency factor of it. And I just think that needs to be more fleshed out. How
Mayor
this-
Pro Tem Klein and Councilmember Giacomino and members of the council. Yes, absolutely. You can make a motion to table items 5 through 11, and so that we can set a specific deadline, gather additional information from the applicants. I would just encourage that the information that we get from the applicants, that it be uniform. If that we don't ask for specific information from one applicant on a specific that the information that you seek is uniform throughout the different applicants. If there's specific information you want, that we can put that on like an application form or something like that. Just understand that if you do a motion to table, that under the Roberts rules, that then these items come back at the next regular scheduled meeting, or you can make a motion to just make a general motion for items 5 through 11 to be brought back at a future council meeting after a 2 or 3 week deadline has been implemented for the acceptance of additional applications and additional supporting documentation.
Okay, thank you.
So,
And how do we I can't think of the word, specify what type of documentation? Does that make sense? Like, if I guess my concern is, how many, some of these, are, like I said, they're far reaching, I guess, as far as who they affect. I don't know if I'm making sense. Whereas,
right, no, and I completely understand. You want to know what the need is for the funds. How is that tied to COVID-19? How has the business been impacted by COVID-19? What are these funds going to be used for? What's, is this an emergency? Different things like that. And one way we can do that, we don't have to say right now tonight what the specific requirements are going to be of the, the information that we want from the application. But each council member can can contact the city manager and, you know, express what it is that you're kind of looking for. And then management can put together a, you know, a more formal, more detailed application questionnaire, additional documentation information that we need from the applicants to support the request for these funds.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Estes. Yes, Mr.
So,
I agree with Mr. Estes. I think that this application form should be expanded. It's not specific enough, and it doesn't give people the opportunity to compete for the money. And number two, I think a 30-day period would be appropriate. There's a lot of information that has to go back and forth between staff and the public, and 30 days would probably be the minimum to get that done.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Okay, so I think, Mr. Coffin, you understand where
Well,
we're at?
yeah, I understand completely. You know, just to bear in mind that our initial direction was to make the application as simple as humanly possible. Those were my instructions 2 weeks ago. So I will need some direction from you in terms of how what you want in terms of an expanded application. And quite frankly, this is off topic too, but I think maybe the best thing to do at this point would be to take the action on items 5 through 11 that Joe recommended, which is to delay them. And then I'm also going to have to specify a deadline for applications to come in. I'm hearing direction for that. I'm hearing 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And so, and the applications that we've got, we may have, some of them are quite detailed, some of them are not. We'll ask for more detail based on whatever direction you give us. And we'll go from there.
Okay.
Will that direction be, like you said, by email, or are we doing that right now?
See, Joe, you're going to have to determine whether or not this is, I mean, we're on item 5 right now. Can we discuss?
right, and Mayor Pro Tem Klein and members of council, you know, yeah, we're trying to resolve a general concern for all of the agenda items 5 through 11. You know, we really don't have it agendized for, you know, general discussion as to the, you know, the overall policy of how we're going to process the various applications. So what we can do is, since it seems like the consensus from the council is that we want to provide at least 4 weeks, 30 days of additional time, we can agendize a discussion item for the next council meeting to get more specifics as to direction as to the information that we want from the application, from the applicants, which still gives them, you know, 2 weeks after that to be able to provide that information, and it gives the city a sufficient amount of time to get that information out to the general public. Be able to provide that information.
I don't know why they're.
I didn't hear the question.
There wasn't one.
That was you.
Oh, Mr. Collins.
This is for you, Joe, and the rest of the council. Would it be possible for us to schedule a work session in the next 2 weeks so that we could give direction to the staff on how we want this put together and presented to the public? Because that appears to be what the city manager is requesting.
Yes, absolutely. The mayor and council can call a work session meeting and just to specifically address this, which also allows us to kind of again, make it more public, get the information out there that the council is going to be holding a work session to discuss the application process and the information that we're looking for these assistance applications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, since we have 3 weeks between now and the next regular council meeting, and since every day that we wait adds to 30, we should probably do that work session next Tuesday,
Tuesday, which is what?
24th. Yeah.
Okay, so then does somebody want to move to table?
Well, I would
Items
make a
5 through
motion,
11?
I would make a motion to not consider these items 5 through 11 until 4 weeks from today, or to the next meeting. And then we'll discuss about the work session.
Well, if we have a work session on Tuesday to give,
Right, that's separate.
Management-
That's separate from this motion.
yes, direction on how we want, what we are going to
Right,
request.
but that's separate from this
Okay.
motion. This motion is just to put this off for 30 days.
Or just an indefinite time, that way we can, because if we keep saying 30 days, and we move it out, at least this way we can just say
All right,
till a future date.
till future.
I would agree with that.
Okay. I make a motion to put these items 5 through 11 off till a future date, till we have further instruction.
Second.
I second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Frank and a second by Lou to table items 5 through 11 and request a work session next Tuesday to give direction.
Not table, but to delay consideration.
Okay,
All right, it's just a technicality under the Roberts rules.
Yeah,
okay, so delay consideration.
yes, not the.
Okay. Ms. Corona.
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacominno,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Sweet,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein.
Aye, motion passes 5-0 to delay consideration of items 5 through 11. Okay, well, that was long.
That just shortened the meeting quite a bit.
Very constructive.
Okay, so we move on to item 12, which is discussion and possible approval, purchase a portable defibrillator for the fire department from Stryker Medical using American Rescue Plan Act funds. Jenny.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council. Tonight, I have a request to purchase the LifePak 15 cardiac monitor for the fire department. This unit would be purchased using the American Rescue Plan Act funds in the amount of $39,402.86. This would be from Stryker Medical. I believe they're a sole source vendor. This is a vital piece of equipment that is essential diagnostic tool. It's mandated by the Arizona Department of Health Services so we can operate an ALS ambulance. And I just ask for your approval for this. It's needed badly, to say the least. So
Yes,
if anybody has any
thank you,
questions.
Acting Chief Richardson. Does anybody have any questions on this?
Yes, I do. Will this be a replacement or these you've never had before, or why do we need them now?
It is a replacement of one of ours that is broken. It works for part of its functions, but all of the functions do not work in it, and it's it's obsolete. It would cost way too much money to fix it for it to, they won't be able to program it to the new standards.
Okay, I'm talking about the 15 portables. Did you had 15, you replacing, or you never had them before? That's my question.
Talking about one cardiac monitor, LP15. We're not talking about the portable AEDs that we're gonna be. I'm not 100% sure I can understand what you're saying.
I think the confusion is that the 15 is the name of the unit.
The model.
Oh, yeah.
It's not the quantity.
Okay.
Um,
Okay, so it's a replacement for one you had that's no longer working or you have trouble with.
That's correct.
Okay. That's it.
So maybe this is a dumb question, but isn't it rather, I don't want to say this nicely, without getting into trouble. Isn't it kind of not a good thing to have one that doesn't work good? Because it could be, I mean, it could cause us legal problems down the road if we don't have a fully functioning AED. So
That's
isn't it-
correct, Joni.
Huh?
That's correct. The cardiac monitor itself works, but some of the extra functions on it, the SpO2 monitoring, the blood pressure cuff,
Right.
the other tools that it has on it don't work.
Right.
And the screen is broken. They won't, it allows liquid to get inside of it. It's just not, the company won't repair it.
I wouldn't classify it as causing legal problems, but it definitely doesn't arise to a standard of care that we should be exhibiting.
Mr. Powell?
Chief, acting chief, does the old unit have any value in terms of resale or trade-in?
Yeah, yes, they do. They have a trade-in value. That is gonna be, I believe it's gonna be worked into the equation. It just hadn't happened yet. It was kind of a, we were trying to get this passed. I did talk to him about the trade-in value. He did say that there is a trade-in value, possibly up to $3,000 trade-in value. So he would work with us on that. We're only allowed to trade one for one. We can't trade two bad ones for one good one. It's a one for one trade, basically. A rebate, I guess.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, Chief. Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the purchase of a portable defibrillator for the fire department from Stryker Medical using American Rescue Plan funds.
Second.
We have a motion from Ms. Giacomino and a second from Mr. Colley to approve the purchase of a portable defibrillator for the fire department from Stryker Medical using the rescue plan funds. Ms. Coronado.
Councilmember Pollak,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacomino,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Said,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein.
Aye. Motion passes 5-0. Okay. Next is item 13. And it's discussion and possible approval for demolition of City Hall building located at 118 Arizona Street. Mr. Harrell.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. As you may recall, in March of last year, 2020, we did publish a request for proposal to do a demolish the building, Old City Hall, located at 118 Arizona Street. At the time, we did receive 7 proposals. Within that request for proposal, there were 3 alternates, base bid and 3 alternates. The alternate one was to remove the material, the demolished material, and take that to a site that is owned by the city. The alternate 2 was to remove that material and take that to a private site. And alternate 3 was to fill the basement. We were unable to complete this project due to COVID issues. There were a number of issues that restricted us from completing this project. So we have reached out to the low bidder. In this case, the low bidder was MGD Construction and Design. We consulted them and asked if they would be interested in reviving this project. We did meet with them a number of times. Due to the change in scope, we asked them to resubmit their proposal. The change in scope, what that includes is trying to preserve the entryway to the building there located at 118 Arizona Street, excuse me. So again, through a number of meetings with them, we were able to come to an agreement with the scope. They did resubmit their proposal. That proposal is now $70,250. That includes the demolition of the 3 exterior walls, an attempt to preserve the entryway. They'll do their best to do so. I mean, it's not guaranteed because of the condition of the wall, but they will make an attempt to preserve that entryway, to hopefully include that in a new building at that location. The proposal also includes removing the material and taking it to a site located or owned by the city. That site is near the old sewer ponds, located just off Arizona Street, north of the airport. With that, do you all have any questions?
Question.
Yes.
How much of the entryway are we talking about trying to preserve?
The entryway, so the archway, and then there are some pillars that are included next to that archway. That is the area that we're trying to preserve.
Well, we have no plan at this time, what kind of building we're gonna put there. And we're gonna leave that entryway there.
That is correct.
Probably a good chance that's gonna have to come down with a new building.
It may, but the objective is to try to preserve that architectural portion of the building and maybe include that into the building. If we take it down now, we can't put it back up. So
Well, I understand there's, sentimental reasons for leaving it, but I just question how practical that is.
that is something that we can also consider during the actual design of the new building. If it's not feasible to include that in the new building, then we can also take that down at that time. But at this time, we feel that that's probably the architectural portion of the building that I think most people want to see preserved.
Yes, Mr. Font.
Frank, just to chime in a little bit more on that aspect of this demo bid. Since we started talking about this again a couple of months ago, the fact that we've been talking about it at live meetings and with the publicity that's generated through local news reports and so forth, generated a lot of discussion, particularly discussion of calling the city manager or stopping by city manager's office or asking the city manager on the street. And I'm not going to rehash, you guys have heard a lot more than I have over the last couple of years, but the common thread was if we could save anything and build a new building, that would at least preserve our heritage. Okay. Not in so many words, but the gist of what people were telling me. And quite frankly, looking through all of the files that had been generated up until this point, there was in fact one suggestion that we attempt to save basically the entryway to the building in the front porch and build a building to it, essentially on the same footprint that currently exists. I felt that when people who are dead set against tearing anything down could be convinced that if we could save something important about this building and thus our heritage as a community, then maybe that's what we ought to consider doing. And so that's why we commenced with the discussion with the lowest responsive bidder, because we thought, well, is this, number one, is this doable? And nobody's 100% convinced it's doable, but it is 100% tribal. And so what we would have is, and yes, to some degree, you're making a decision here as to what you will do moving forward with the city hall. There will be other things that may have to be modified on that site before a new building can be built, depending on what we end up with. So, but this gets a couple of things for us. The first thing it gets for us is it gets us out from under the notice of violation that we've so richly deserved by abandoning that building for over 3 years. And the second thing it gets us is it gets us some credibility back with the neighborhood who doesn't believe that we follow our own rules. And so that, plus looking ahead to what it might become. You know, at some point we have to make decisions, we have to look forward and not look back, and we have to stop worrying about whether it's going to be a garden or any of the numerous other things that have been suggested over the last couple of years. And you know, and of course I did mention, we did have this discussion when I first came back to work, that in fact the night before I came back to work, and at that point, you know, I said we need to have a city hall. We need to rebuild a city hall, and nobody's going to completely like what we do. Okay, but we have to have the vision to move forward, and we have to start taking steps to do it. And now is already too late.
Well, I certainly agree. My question, I'm not against tearing it down. It's just a question of practicality of leaving that aside.
How long is this going to take? Do you know? Did they give you to tear it down? Is there a time line on this?
I don't have that time frame with me right now. I can look into that and consult with them and get back to you.
Madam Chairman, I didn't want to push for a date because I think, you know, if we're going to do some intricate work around that building to try and preserve a portion of it, I would hate to put a deadline on that.
Now, talking about the contractor, how long will that take them to remove it? I mean, he will usually tell you I'll do it within 30 days, 60 days. I just wanted to have an
And
idea.
again,
If it doesn't happen.
it's been sitting there for 3.5 years. If it takes 30 or 40 days to wreck it out, it's no big deal.
Yeah, they're looking at the proposal now. There is no specific time frame. It definitely, once construction begins, it needs to be continuous. It shouldn't be something that's delayed.
Yes, I agree with most of what Mr. Falcon said about the building. If they can preserve the portico, that would be a nod to our heritage, and that would support that. I think that's a good idea. However, there's going to be an engineering decision that has to be made. It can't be made by the demolition contractor. It has to be made by an independent engineering firm to decide whether or not that portico can stand on its own. So I'm open to the idea of let's demolish most of the building and we'll address the portico later and see what can be done. If it can be saved, fine. If it can't, well, then that's the building. But I think, as you say, moving forward is what's important here. It seems like an economical and logical way to proceed.
I agree. Can you get maybe a structural engineer to look at it before?
We're way ahead.
Yes, we do have the contact for structural engineers.
We're not going to demo anything until we got a sign off registered professional.
Okay.
Anybody else? I just want to thank Mr. Falcon for moving forward with this. It has been sitting in a very touchy and sore subject for a lot of us. And so I thank you for the care that you've taken on this and moving forward. And we just hope for the best. So thank you.
And I'd also like to thank you for taking into consideration of those people that were born and raised here, and that structure plays a big role in our history and the history of this town. And I do appreciate it. I know many people that I do know, the old timers up in their 80s and upper, that want to try to salvage much. They understand that the structure has been damaged, but I'm glad that you were taking the time, Mr. Merrill, to save what you can, and then that decision being made after. Because just like you said, once it's gone, you can't go back, and that needs to be understood by everyone. So thank you again.
So do we have a motion?
I move to approve the proposal submitted by MDG Construction and Development for demolition of the City Hall building located at 118 Arizona.
There's a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Moved by Lou and seconded by Frank. Ms. Cornell.
Councilmember Pollock,
Aye.
Councilmember Giacominno,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember Sweet,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Klein.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
As,
Okay, so
as one who's been years of his life, that building.
we thank you. Okay, so now, do we want to just move on with agenda item 14, or do we want to have you do your city manager's report first?
This evening I have no city manager's report, so
Oh.
go ahead.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so agenda item 14 is a possible approval of a motion to go into executive session for a couple of matters. Do we have a motion?
I move to go into executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Frank and seconded by Mel, that we enter into executive session. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 5-0. We are in executive.
I will log out and log back into the executive session Zoom.
Okay, see you in a bit.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Still here.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay, so do we have a motion to come out of executive session?
I move to come out of the executive session.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion
Somebody
and a second to come out of executive.
I wanna
All
get
in
some
favor, signify with aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are out of executive session. Back in regular. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, signify with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned.
Good night, Joe.
Hi, Joe.
Great night, everybody. Have a safe drive home.
You too. Good night, everybody.